Hey everybody, it's Laine Lipsky with Parenting Parachute, and I am here today talking about triggers and talking about your challenging kids and what they do to trigger you. I put up a question in this group a couple of days ago about what your challenging kid does to most trigger you, does or says. I'm going to read a couple of them because they're just so real and they're just like, oh my gosh, very intense. One person says, that's an easy one, Lainey. When my child says, you make everything sad, awful, or bad. When a child says, I'll do it later, it usually doesn't get done without many reminders, if at all. When my child says, you're stupid, then puts hands over the ears and I'm not listening. And I repeat, I'm not listening every time I try to speak. We've got lots of sad faces and angry faces up here. Got a dad saying when they say no, when my child screams, when my kids throw things at me, especially at my head, when my kid says, I forgot. Another mom says, saying no or yelling at us. Another mom says, you don't even, this is a quote from her child, you don't even love me. You don't even care about me. You want me to have a bad life. Aww. Another mom says, when my child argues with me, when my child runs away from me. And another mom says, asks me if she can do something and then does the opposite of my answer and argues with me even after I show her how I am right. For example, a math problem. Or my daughter asks me to help her for help with her homework, but doesn't take the help and turns around and asks her dad, basically making me feel like I don't know what I'm doing or talking about and lying. And she says, sorry, I couldn't choose just one. These are lots and lots of triggering stuff, you guys. Seriously. Hi, Betsy. Good to have you here. Who else is here with me? I've got a couple of other people here. Just say hi so that I know who I've got with me. And as I'm talking, if you give me a thumbs up or a heart along the way, so I just know that what I'm saying resonates with you, that would be great. And if you're watching the replay, if you put a little hashtag replay, that would help me out a lot just to know who's live and who's watching on the replay. That would be great. So the thing about triggers, y'all, is this. Triggers are things that are set inside of us when we were little. Something happened to us a long time ago. And it could be any time. When I say little, I mean a long time ago. Something that was a pivotal moment in our lives, something that marked us in the moment where we got affected by something so deeply and we weren't able to fully resolve it in that moment. So it could have been something that was scary, could have been something that was painful, could have been something that was very upsetting, like a sort of an abandonment kind of level, but something that happened that really planted a seed in us that didn't fully get resolved. So it is something that can be it's like a raw nerve, right? It can be touched and activated very, very quickly. That's how emotional triggers work. And with physical triggers, that's, there could be physical trauma. And, if something happens to somebody who experienced a physical trauma, that can be affected as well. All right, and that can be activated, as well. All right, I've got lots of people joining me now, and I'd love to know who's here. So if you guys can just say hi, that would be wonderful. I'd like to know who's here and who I'm talking to. So when we talk about emotional triggers, though, we're really talking about things that our kids do that make us go ape in a moment, that make us get super reactive really quickly, and sometimes we know why, and sometimes we don't know why. So I'm just going to ask you a quick question. And I'm not going to ask anybody to get super personal in this context because I know we're on Facebook and there are people here you don't know, maybe there are people here you do know, but I will just ask you this. When you are, first of all, it's a yes/no question. Are there things that your child does that trigger you and you immediately go into sort of a defensive mode where you are like, I got to figure this out. I got to figure this out now. And it's a very reactive, defensive kind of a mode. Do you experience that with your kids? And my next yes or no question, I see some people popping up, putting in their answers. My next question is going to be, do you know why? Do you know what that thing is that's being triggered? I'm not asking you to tell me what it is. I'm just asking you, do you know why? Do you know what it is? It's a yes, no question. Do you know what that trigger is? Hi, Chelsea. Good to have you here, sweetie. Okay. So if you know what it is, you are in a position to actually start changing some things about your activation and your reactiveness to your kids. Because what happens when we get triggered as parents, and our challenging kids are so good at triggering us, they're so good at triggering us just by being challenging, just by not listening to us when we ask them something, which could trigger a feeling of being ignored or disrespected or even abandoned, right? Our challenging child could be triggering a sense of lack of safety by running out into the street and not taking our hands and not having a sense of general safety. That might trigger something very deep in us, not knowing when we were safe when we were a kid, or being left alone to figure things out, or a scary thing that happened to us when we were little. Having our child go up to a strange dog, for example, and we had a scary experience with a dog when we were little, that kind of thing, right? Chelsea saying, I get upset when my 7-year-old is extremely persistent and can get to the point of yelling and won't accept no, right? I think because my mom didn't tolerate that with me. Sure, absolutely. So the other thing that gets triggered with us is a sense of insecurity around parenting in general, a sense of insecurity of, why isn't my kid listening to me right now? And what does that mean? The story we attach to it can be a very triggering thing for us. When we see our kid misbehaving, and we know when our kid is misbehaving, they're not listening to us. All the other kids are sitting down in the mommy and me music class, and our kid's the one running around the room or hitting the trash can or whatever he or she is doing, right? The thing that can get triggered in us is this insecurity of, what am I doing wrong? Why is my kid the one doing this? Am I a bad mom? Am I not cut out for this? What is going on with my kid? Why is my kid so different than these other kids? And that is probably, so the emotional things that get triggered in us are going to happen with any parenting experience, right? Our kid does something or says something that on an emotional level reminds us of something that happened to us when we were little, on an unconscious level, and we get triggered. So parenting any kid is going to trigger us. But the challenging kids are going to be the ones that, when they are, disobeying or disrespecting us, it triggers a whole other set of self-talk and reactions in us, which is, what the heck is going on here? And what is wrong here? What am I doing wrong? And it's such a vulnerable place for parents to be, because they're so quick, especially the moms that I talk to. So we're so quick as moms to start blaming ourselves, to start looking at, what did I do? What didn't I do? What should I be doing better? What could I be doing better? Is this behavior going to go on forever? Why does one kid listen and the other kid doesn't? Why does my niece listen so well? Or why does my best friend's kid listen so well and my kid does not listen? What is wrong with us? That's the big thing that gets triggered in parents that I talk to who have challenging kids. It becomes the, what's wrong with us? Or my kid is bad, or I'm bad at this whole mom thing. I'm not cut out for this. This one's too hard for me. So what happens then is that we start shutting down. We either rise up and we start to yell at our kids. We try to get bigger than they are and try to control the behavior more and more with the yelling and the threatening and the bribing and the shaming and the threat, all of that stuff. Or the other thing that happens with parents that I see when they get triggered by their challenging child's behavior is they start to shrink and they start to fold, because they're like, I don't know what to do here. And I don't have a tool to pull out of my back pocket that isn't yelling and shaming and bribing. And I don't want to do that stuff because that's the stuff that was done to me. So they're at a loss and they start folding like a house of cards. And before you know it, those kids are the ones who are in charge and they're calling the shots, and more the kids pick up on the parents folding. And so the kids' behavior gets on a roll, because what the kids are actually trying to do is they're trying to get you to a point where you are taking over so that they're not in control so much. Because believe it or not, even with all of the defiance that you're seeing with your challenging kids, They don't want to be in control. It's a very, very scary place for them to be, to feel like they're the ones who are calling the shots, or they're the ones who are kind of making up the rules. They want boundaries. They want boundaries, and they need boundaries. It would be like, the best analogy I have is, if you're driving and you're going over either one of those really high overpasses, or you're going over a very long bridge, and there are gates up next to you, right? And sometimes those gates on the side rails they're not very high, especially on the overpasses. It's kind of shocking to me that those guardrails can be as, like, I'm not a very tall person, and they're not even like up to here on me. They're like 4 feet tall or something. And the idea that just having that having those side rails can keep you feeling safe it's kind of silly, because if you really want to go over the edge, you could. But imagine driving over one of those high overpasses, or one of those really long bridges, or any bridge for that matter, without any guardrails on the side. It's like, whoo, I don't know where I am here, and I want to figure out, I just hope I make it. That's how kids feel when there are not those guardrails in place, when we don't have the boundaries clearly defined for them and they don't know what the rules are. So my heart goes out to you, my sweet parent tribe, listening to me all these times. I know you have challenging kids. I've got 2 of my own. I totally know what it's like to parent challenging kids. And the rules of the road do not always apply to these kids, because they are willing to say no, because they are, like you said, Chelsea, extremely persistent, and they won't accept no for an answer like the other compliant kids who you see just kind of following their moms or their dads around, or their big siblings, and holding out their hand and taking a hand and getting off the couch the first time that somebody says, please get off the couch, sweetheart. Our kids aren't like that. They're not strung that way. They're not wired that way. They came to us, right? Give me like a thumbs up if your kid came to you with a strong temperament, right? Even if you have a kid, another kid who has an easy temperament, and even if you have a kid who has an easy temperament here, because I know some of you do too. But even though this group is for challenging kids, I know some of you have easy kids out there, but they came to you a certain way, right? So they came to you with this temperament. And like I said before, there are things about just inherently being a parent that will trigger you, because very few people have gone through life without anybody affecting them or having any pain in their life. Pain is a part of life. Pain is part of life. Suffering is the optional part. And we can talk about that another time. But even if you have a challenging child, an easy child, you're going to get triggered by things. My point again is that when you have a challenging child, they are going to be pressing buttons in you that you didn't even know that you had, right? And Chelsea, for somebody like you who knows exactly where this comes from, like, this is how my mom treated me, something that happened the other day, somebody told me that watching her older child be nasty to the younger child, she was like, well, I was the younger child in my family, and I hate seeing the older sibling being mean to the younger sibling because my older sibling was so mean to me growing up, right? All sorts of things are going to be triggered and activated, which is why parenting, I call it one of the biggest wake-up calls we can ever have. An opportunity to look at what triggers us, an opportunity to unpack those stories, and to let go of all of the stuff that we have that's attached to it. Parenting is the biggest opportunity to let go of the triggers and to heal what is triggering us, so that we can be fully present, fully attuned, and fully aware of what our kids need moment to moment. It's the biggest, wake-up call that I've ever had in my life. And it took me having challenging kids to hear that wake-up call. If I had had easy kids, I had enough training under my belt before becoming a mom myself that I could have sailed through parenting fairly easily if I had had easy kids. I had to have challenging kids in order to wake me up. Does anybody else feel that way? And do you feel like you had a challenging kid for a reason? That maybe this is the wake-up call that you needed to have in order to get some of your shit in check. Is that possible for any of you? Or do you feel like, no, this one was just given to me because I don't know. I don't know why this one was given to me. Do you guys feel like you were given your child, your specific child for a specific reason? And I don't even mean to suggest that, you know, anything about, a divine plan, what do I want to say? I'm not suggesting, I'm not calling anybody out on their like religious beliefs or anything like that. You can believe in God. You don't have to believe in God. I don't really care. But as far as just like the universe goes and your opportunity to grow as a person, I am wondering if you guys believe that there's a reason for you to have the child that you have, or put another way, that you have a really big lesson to learn from this challenging child that you have. And you can just give me, I know I've got lots of people here now, but thumbs up, thumbs down. Is that thumbs down even an option? No, I think it's just like sad face, heart, sad, angry. Let me know if you think that your child was here, that you guys were put together as a mom-child pair or a dad-child pair, if I've got some dads here, to teach you something. Because if you see it that way, then what you're able to see is that when your challenging child triggers you, it's actually an invitation for you to take that challenge. It's an invitation for you to take that moment and say, what am I supposed to learn here? What is being brought up for me? How do I let it go? What do I need to do differently so that I don't just repeat history and leak my baggage all over my kids? Because I don't want to leak my baggage over my kids. I want their child to be about them and not just a replay of my own childhood. How do you do that? Is that of interest to you? To me, that's like the thing that lights me up most about parenting, is that it's always this question of, how can I learn from this? What do I have to get from this? And if you can start to see your challenging child as your greatest teacher, then you're going to be in a position to approach everything differently. And Betsy says, oh, Chelsea, you said, sorry, honey, you said before, so strong-willed from the moment she was born. Absolutely. And you also said, I set boundaries and positively parent, but struggle with not getting into she doesn't know how good she has it, etc. And it can be result in shaming, and then you blame yourself because you end up giving her what she wants, and you say things that aren't so helpful. Also very common, because when challenging kids really push you to the point where your emotional back is against the wall, all of your hardwiring as a parent is going to start coming out. And if you don't like that stuff, then you've got to get into some retraining of it. Okay. So Chelsea, I would actually want to talk to you and hear more of what you have to say about that. Totally strong-willed from the time she was born. And Betsy, you're saying your kid is pretty easy, I know, with exceptions, but you get triggered, so you get to heal past stuff. And true about the wake-up call, absolutely. And that's what I was saying before. Even if your child is has an easy temperament, is an easygoing kid, they're still going to trigger things in you, right? And there's reasons for that as well. And I'm here to hold space and to honor those of you who are at your wit's end with your challenging kids, because the solutions that are presented in, the books and the blogs and, whatever's for most parenting advice has to do with easier kids. And there's plenty of resources out there. And yes, parenting is hard. I'm talking about another level of hard, people. I'm talking about when those things are not working and you're getting upset and you're getting triggered and you continue to be activated and you want to stop. That's what I'm talking about. And so I want to help you. I want to help you figure out a clear path for getting past and through that, not avoiding it, but actually walking through the fire and getting to the other side with your challenging kid, having a healthy attachment with them, and having the connection of your dreams with them. That's my goal for every single parent who I work with. So, my friends, Chelsea, you said your daughter is 100% like you and you are learning together. Absolutely. Absolutely. My kids are both a lot like me in different ways. And I tell you again and again, I have two challenging kids and they just continue. They are my greatest teachers. And some days it feels like a real blessing. And some days it feels like a real burden, especially when they were younger, because a lot of the stuff was being activated. And I could trace it to, I knew my history well enough to know, what was being activated and why, but I didn't know always what to do about it. And so if you're in that place, you guys, if you're in that place of, I know what's happening here, you know it up here, but you don't know how to do it differently from here, and you want to start learning to do it differently, I want to offer you, as always, call with me. Give me a call. We'll get things sorted out and we'll see if I can help you. And I'd be happy to, because I've been walking this path for years myself and would be honored to help you walk it as well and get you guys connected and feeling really super confident about your parenting and on a path to just helping your challenging kid and you have the healthiest bond that you can possibly have, because I know that's what you're all after. And I think the big unstated fear of having a challenging child when parents are continuing to lose their shit at them is that they're not actually creating the parent-child relationship that they want to create with their child, because their child makes it difficult to do so because of all the discipline stuff, because of the lack of listening. So if that's a fear of yours and you want to erase that fear and know for sure 100% that you are creating unbreakable bonds, healthy unbreakable bonds with your challenging child, give me a call and we'll talk about it. Okay? All right, you guys, that's what I have for everybody today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. If you're watching the replay, just let me know through your hashtag replays. And I look forward to talking to you next time. Take good care of yourselves. Take good care of your kids. We have one shot at parenthood and they've got one shot at childhood. So let's make it count. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.